Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. I just want to start by saying a massive happy Thanksgiving. So today, the full issue of January 2022's issue of Empire was released. The one with the Boba Fett special as well as other details for the other shows. Over the last 3 days we've been looking at tidbits that Empire released throughout the week, but this morning my dear friends, I got my hands on the full digital issue. I read through it and I'm here to report on some very interesting details. But I will say that if you've not watched my last 3 news updates, then go back and check those after this video, because the main bulk of information for the Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi from this issue was covered earlier in the week. But with that said, no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight into it. So early in the issue, Empire interviewed Kathleen Kennedy, and aside from the information that she gave about Obi-Wan Kenobi, notably the emotional reunion between Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, she also gave us an update for Rangers of the New Republic. We now know that the show is more or less officially cancelled. It was shelved earlier in the year after Gina Carano was fired and no longer in active production, but until now we all assumed that at some stage the show would come back into production, but that is no longer the case. Kennedy states we had never written any scripts or anything on that. Some of that will figure into future episodes, I'm sure, of the next iteration of The Mandalorian. Now, is she being honest or just saving face? Did they really not write anything for the series, or as rumours have suggested, there was an entire plan for the series? But from this we learn that essentially, ideas that Filoni and Favreau had for Rangers are going to be absorbed by the other shows of the Mandalorian universe. And this more or less confirms that Rangers as its own series is not going to happen. And I will say, my dear Megalorians, the article is not ambiguous when it comes to Gina Carano. They mention her by name as the reason the series was put on hold in the first place. So we finally have an official confirmation of what the situation is with Rangers. In the eyes of Lucasfilm, at least the way that Kathleen Kennedy words it, it seems like it was no major loss. But in the eyes of fans, it's a different story, because with or without Gina Carano, many of us were looking forward to it. Cara Dune may have only played a supporting role in The Mandalorian's first 2 seasons, but nonetheless, given her rebellious nature, not being a joiner, and coming from Alderaan, were all interesting prospects for a spin-off series. As you guys know, there were rumours about Hera Syndulla or maybe even Cobb Vanth filling that slot after Gina's departure, but that was during a time where Lucasfilm were probably exploring other options, but ultimately they came to an end when they realised it would be much easier to shelve the series and just incorporate some of those elements into The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka. So it truly looks like this is the end for Rangers of the New Republic. We probably won't hear about it again in any official capacity. Kathleen Kennedy seems to write it off as an afterthought, and as such, I highly doubt Lucasfilm care to even address it anymore. Between the Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, The Mandalorian Season 3 and maybe another spin-off show, Favreau and Filoni have their hands full and have much bigger fish to fry. And the Ahsoka series is going to begin production in just under 4 months' time. That is the really exciting show of the Mando-verse, and when the Book of Boba Fett is finished and Mando Season 3, all of our attention is going to be on how that series continues the story of everyone's favourite Togruta. I say that and then someone's going to say that their favourite Togruta is Shaak Ti. Well fine, but I mean most people's favourite Togruta. Now that I think of it, I absolutely love Shaak Ti. Although I will say she got way too many deaths in the deleted scenes of Revenge of the Sith. But I digress. So now, my dear friends, let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett. We've already covered most of what's written in this piece over the last few days, but here is another little tidbit. It really caught my attention, so let's talk about it. Jon Favreau talks about the legacy of Jabba the Hutt and Bib Fortuna, and then he hints that we're going to be returning to Mos Espa. I don't think people realise just how massive Tatooine is going to be in this series, and we may not even leave the planet. So Mos Espa is going to appear. We saw it prominently in The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, but the hometown of Shmi and Anakin Skywalker has not been properly explored in the post-Return of the Jedi world. In his own words, Favreau says, "As with starting any new job, getting the lay of the land won't be easy. As with Bib Fortuna lacking Jabba's leadership qualities, Boba is inheriting problems. Who would have Bib Fortuna been in business with?" Favreau queries. And as this article says, it basically hints that we're going to revisit the settlement of Mos Espa, last seen in the prequel trilogy. Favreau goes on to say, like any big city, there are different neighborhoods, different quarters, and Boba will have to try and fill out who's living there and how the power structure plays out under the leadership of different factions. In the Book of Boba Fett trailer, Fett says he plans to rule with respect. Given that seconds later he's seen crunching skulls, that might be easier said than done. Although Boba Fett is very experienced as a bounty hunter, he's not experienced at running a criminal syndicate or managing forces. So it seems as though after Jabba's death, Bib Fortuna created a lot of problems, and it sounds as though it's down to Boba Fett and Fennec Shand to resolve problems left by the bloated, blubbergumptuous Twi'lek. And if you're thinking one step ahead, we might meet some of Jabba's relatives, maybe even Rotta the Hutt. There have been rumours that surviving Hutts are going to make an appearance in the series. Jabba was not the only one. And in the wake of his death in episode 6 on the sail barge, his family might be seeking out inheritance. Or maybe they already came to Jabba's palace and Bib Fortuna created more problems that Boba has to solve. I would absolutely love to see Hutts in live action again. It's been way too long. Now, one other thing that we learned from this Boba piece in Empire magazine is the list of directors. We already knew that Robert Rodriguez, as the showrunner, was going to direct multiple episodes. They also list Dave Filoni, Bryce Dallas Howard, and newcomers Steph Green and Kevin Tancherone. But what's really interesting is that Jon Favreau, while producing the series, is not going to direct. So that is basically everything we learned from the issue. Everything else is just talks about Temuera Morrison, what the role of Boba Fett means to him, and how he's evolved since his role as Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. An interesting piece indeed. I truly recommend you go and read it. And finally, my dear friends, Adam Driver has stated he's not against returning to the role of Kylo Ren. And this adds more fuel to the fire of the idea that the sequels are going to have a revival. Kathleen Kennedy says it's on the books, and Lucasfilm are currently talking about how do they continue the story after the rise of Skywalker. Now, when it comes to Kylo Ren or Ben Solo, how they bring the character back, I do not know. Will it be a prequel to The Force Awakens, or are they simply going to bring him back to life? In his own words, he said, "I'm totally not against it. For me, it's a filmmaker's medium, so my only thing is working with great filmmakers." So if you're a sequels fan and you're hoping that one day you will see Kylo Ren or Ben Solo again, this is massive news. We've heard a lot about the revival of the sequels recently, and after that story broke about Daisy Ridley having breakfast with Kennedy, there may be plans for episodes 10, 11 and 12, or at the very least, a live-action spin-off series. So that, my dear friends, is everything we have for today's news update. 3 very important, massive stories. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Now go and enjoy your Thanksgiving, my dear friends, and I'll see you in the next news update. If you enjoyed it, just be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. Please be sure to leave a comment. I love to read what you guys have to say. And also be sure to subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be alerted every time I upload a video. But otherwise, my dear friends, may the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg, and I'll see you tomorrow.